Welcome to Doctors on Air. Today we'll be talking about the big reset and building healthy habits for 2026. Doctors on Air is Nigeria's leading healthcare program where our medical experts break down issues affecting your life, your families, and your future. It's about clear facts, trusted voices, and building a better and healthier future together. Today on the program, we'll be having 3 different specialists. But first on this half, we'll be talking to Dr. Kemi Kwenin, who is the consultant family physician of Right Results Diagnostics. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Ajayi. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the program. Now, we're talking today about building healthy habits. This is the first program of the year. And we're talking about building healthy habits for 2026. So tell me, as we approach the year, so many people focus, they say, I'm going to build these healthy habits, I'm going to change my life around. Why is it so difficult for people to sustain that?
That's a great question. So I think the most important thing is that people tend to have the idea that they want to be healthier, I need to eat better, I need to exercise. They have the right idea, but they go about it wrongly. So firstly, they don't know what the issue is. They don't know, why do I need to be healthy? Everyone just knows we should be healthier, we should all exercise, but why do you in particular need to be healthy? And I think that's the starting point for people is, where actually am I in my health? What is my health profile as I am? From there, you can then know what to build on. And often people haven't gone for a health check. They've not seen a doctor in years. They only go when they're ill. And because of that, they really don't know where they're starting from to then know what to build upon.
So what we're talking about is really know yourself, know your body, and understand that. And when you know that, you can then factor in what is relevant for you and why it's necessary for you to actually have the kind of reset we're talking about. So when we talk about a reset, from your professional perspective, what kinds of things are we talking about?
Fantastic. Yeah. So I think reset when we look at Nigeria as a whole, I think one of the most important things to start with is people having their own personal primary care doctor or family physician, as we're also called. That's so important because you need the doctor that not only knows you, but knows you well, knows your history. Primary care physicians typically are called doctors from cradle to grave for a reason, because they know the whole, they know the whole person. And that person is the person that guides you through your health. So your reset really has to start from there. Who's my doctor? Who am I going to? Not when am I sick? Okay, I'm sick. Let me go to this hospital. I have this. Let me go there. Really starts from who will I be seeing to help me on this health journey. Following on from that, you then have to go for your screen, your checkup. You don't wait till you're ill. Most people, that's what we do. You wait till you're ill, then you go, no. The message really today, and the message for the year is, go for a checkup, whether you're ill or not. Everyone should have a checkup at least once a year. Some people are quite religious about it. They'll always go at the beginning of the year. Some people go at the end of the year. But some people really don't go. Yeah, they don't go. And those are the people that tend to run into problems. So reset should be, who's my primary care doctor? 1. 2, when am I having my check for this year? Once you have those 2 together, everything comes together.
And what kind of health screens should we be looking at? Because, for example, at my age, what kind of screens do you want to be looking at people over 50? What kind of screens do you want to be looking at, for example, people in their 20s? Do they even need screening?
Yeah, that's good. So there's some basic things everyone should check. And I say everyone, including people in their 20s, really from age 18. Once you're an adult, although it's debatable, is 18 an adult in Nigeria, 21, that's debatable. But once you're an adult, you should be going for a health screen. And I say that because we need to imbibe the culture of being healthy, prioritizing our health. Most times we don't prioritize our health. People who are young don't even think about the doctor. They think they're going to live forever. They have all the bad habits. They do whatever they want. And then they hit their 40s and problem starts. Surprise, surprise, the problem didn't start then. It actually started probably 10 years ago. But because they've not been checking, they don't know. So health screen-wise, basic ones is you need to know your blood pressure. That's very important. You need to know your cholesterol levels. You need to know your weight. Most of us shy away from our weight, but you need to know your weight. Nowadays, we also talk about waist circumference because we know a lot of people actually put on weight around their waist, and that's the one that's more important and key to cardiovascular health. You need to know your sugar levels, sugar, cholesterol, and I'm talking about all these things because of cardiovascular disease. Cardiovascular disease, as we know, second to infectious diseases, is probably the next highest cause of morbidity and death, mortality in Nigeria. So that's the most important thing that should be on all our minds, especially for older people, but even younger people, because, you know, you have genetic conditions and stuff.
So when you talk about cardiovascular disease, just in case people are out there, they don't know what we're talking about, can you just break it down a bit more? So when you say infections, we're talking about what? When you say cardiovascular conditions, as you say, are the next highest killer in Nigeria today. So that means everybody needs to wake up, just in case they think, it's malaria, like before. It's no longer that way.
Absolutely.
Now it's cardiovascular conditions. What are those kinds of conditions? And how is what you're talking about going to help us manage or understand them or prevent? Because that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about preventive healthcare. How do we prevent ourselves from having these problems?
Absolutely. Thank you. So cardiovascular disease encompasses things like heart attacks, strokes. Those are the common ones that people think about. And heart attacks and strokes are very similar. It's just one happens in the brain, one happens in your heart. And that happens when you have a blockage, or if you like, starvation of blood to that organ, and that part of the organ dies, and it gives you a heart attack if it's in the heart, stroke if it's in the brain. Of course, you have other types of stroke, like hemorrhagic stroke, where you have bleeding. But what puts you at risk of those things are the things I mentioned that you have to screen for. If you have high blood pressure, if you're diabetic, or even pre-diabetes, if you have high cholesterol, if you smoke, if you're overweight, if you have a family history is key. A lot of people feel well, they're healthy, but they have a family history. They may not even know they have a family history, because oftentimes parents and grandparents in those days, they didn't know what was wrong. You know, people die, nobody knows what happened. This is where screening comes into play, because when you screen, you can pick up things you don't even know you have. People sometimes feel, I'm very slim, I can't possibly have high cholesterol, but it doesn't work that way. If you have a genetic predisposition, family history, your cholesterol may be high, even if you're slim, even if you exercise every day, and that will put you at risk of cardiovascular disease. We often hear in Nigeria of people dropping dead, slumping. Nobody just slumps. Nobody just slumps. There's always a cause to the slump. Commonly is cardiovascular disease. When you hear somebody just suddenly drop dead, they didn't just drop dead. Something has started somewhere, and this is where health screening comes into play. Because if you screen, you can pick up these things and treat them before they become a problem.
Now that's, what can I say? That's so important. But there are a lot of reasons people shy away from screening. There are certain myths and beliefs, some of these things you say, the person's slumped. They'll tell you, as the person's in my village.
The villagers.
Exactly, they did it. But I think we need to break away from there, because if we're going to make progress and live longer, because Nigeria has one of the shortest life expectancies in the world. If we're going to make sure we live longer, we really have to take some of these, break away from the traditional forms of thinking and see how we can actually build ourselves and our resilience and understanding of medical conditions to make sure we take advantage of things like the screening you're talking about and correct these issues before they go too far. So do you have any other myths or
Absolutely. I mean, a common one, which I'm sure you've heard as well, is not my portion. I feel well, so why should I screen? Those are common things. People think, I feel well, why should I screen? Some people feel it's expensive. Some people feel, well, I don't have a family history, so I'm well. I don't have a family history, I exercise. But actually, screening is not like a death sentence, or it's like, they're going to find something. I've heard that. If I go for screening, they will always find something. The doctor will always tell you there's something wrong. It's not about that. Actually, most times when people screen, the tests are mostly normal. Strangely enough, the tests are actually mostly normal. You may pick up one or two things, and it's those one or two things that are key that you then need to act on. And oftentimes those things are still minor, they're mild. You know, your blood pressure might just be slightly high. Your doctor may tell you a bit overweight, you need to lose weight. They may tell you your cholesterol is a little bit high. The issue is when you ignore those things, over time they then become worse, problematic. And then you're now, you know, it's now a race against time because you've now left it too long. You now need medication. It ends up more expensive because you may then end up on long-term medication, whereas earlier on you could have maybe treated with just lifestyle, change your diet, exercise, sleep better, and ultimately live longer.
Thank you. And you've actually brought into, into the conversation the issue of lifestyle changes, which is something that we need to look at when we're looking at the big reset. But we'll be talking to two of the specialists in those areas. We have someone who's specializing in exercise and someone who's specializing in food after the break. Welcome back to Doctors on Air. As promised, I said we would have a specialist in nutrition and a specialist in exercise here in the studio with us. And so today we have Majay Aida of Eden Lifestyle and Sharice Ejewere of Carib Health here with us in the studio. Thank you both for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Love it.
So what I might do is start off with exercise, because food is something, you know, we really have to get deep into. So Majay, we have you on every year. It's a pleasure to have you with us. And I must say, you don't look a day older.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You know, while some people have put on a kilo or two, I will not mention your names, myself included, but you know, you seem to be able to keep fit, keep healthy. So can you tell us, you know, what in your opinion, what it should be the big reset for 2026? And then why do these lifestyle changes fail? Because we keep on, you know, talking about resetting. Everybody has their goals. By the end of January, the goals have gone. So I don't know if there's anything you can talk about when you're talking about your particular area, what the reset should be, and then how can people sustain them?
Good. I absolutely love this topic, by the way. I think it's a great idea. People usually fall off. You know, as we enter the new year, new goals, new year, new me, people always start with the same thing. And then come February, kind of falls apart. So I think that people need to try to have a shift in their mindset, an actual paradigm shift, where they look, instead of looking at inspiration and motivation, actually fall back on systems and habits and routines. You know, it's very important. Now, this is something that I've actually implemented in my own life. So I had to test it out before I even talk about it. And I've been doing this all year. And it's amazing because the results that I've seen this year based on just anchoring in routines have been so much better than inconsistent workouts that I've had before. So I think being intentional about your systems that you have in place. And when I talk about systems and I talk about routines, I mean like walking routines, micro workouts throughout the day.
When you say micro workouts, what does that mean?
Okay, I'll tell you what that means. That means 5 to 10 minutes of movement spread out throughout your day. So, for example, a lot of people walk, which is a fantastic exercise, right? But they will do their walks maybe at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. But still, for the rest of the day, they're still quite sedentary. So micro workouts means you are doing micro walks, squats, push-ups for 5-10 minutes throughout your day. And the system that I've put in place for that is to split the day into 4 quarters. So you achieve certain targets in the 4 quarters of that day, thereby spreading out your movement. And I found that to be so much more productive for people, for clients, for myself, than just going for your morning exercise or your evening exercise, because how you move throughout your day matters.
So what are the quadrants you've split it out?
So you have 4 quarters in a day. That's your morning, afternoon, evening, and nighttime. And you achieve 1 kilometer of walking for each of those quarters. If your goal is to hit 10,000 steps in a day, which is what I always recommend to people for daily movement, you will smash that if you split your day up into 4 quarters.
So what's 1 kilometer? Is that 10 minutes, 15 minutes, half
A kilometer is 12 minutes at a normal pace of walking. and also being intentional about where you're doing these things as well. So a lot of people being self-conscious are not going to want to do walks at certain times of the day, in certain places. You can walk anywhere, in any waiting room, in any airport, in any bedroom, in any office. You could walk around in circles. I give tips like maybe every phone call you receive in a day, you take it standing up, moving around. Movement is medicine. And that's what a lot of people fail to realize. And hence they do not prioritize it as they should. It is mandatory, it is necessary, and will save lives.
Oh, thank you. I think that's very, very important. So we've also looked a lot at being burnt out. Okay, so what are the kinds of things you find happens in burnt out individuals, people who are stressed out, burnt out? What are kind of common habits you find with them? And how can they correct it? Because stress is a big thing in our society. And it's really huge. So how do we minimize that? And how do we correct that? How do we prevent burnout or correct burnout in any way?
I think stress is one of the biggest unalivers of people in today's world in Nigeria. I mean, people are literally dropping based on the kind of lifestyles that they have. And I deal with a lot of busy executives who are essentially high functioning, hitting the mark everywhere, paying their bills, but grappling on the inside, grappling with stress. So I think because you can't really see things on people, especially people who seem to be showing up, you have to recognize patterns in behavior. Things like chronic irritability, chronic sadness, tired, changes in habits, changing in patterns, you know, someone that used to show up, not showing up the way that they used to, becoming a bit more withdrawn, or just focusing too much on work without the work-life balance. So recognizing signs in people, recognizing changes in behavior, I think is very important. And it's something that we should look out for, especially in this environment that we live in, which is so challenging for so many people.
So when we find that, the issue is, for example, somebody's listening to this and says, you know what, I think this burnout issue is happening to me.
Sure.
What are some of the kind of habits, what kind of resetting can they do in their year, to this beginning of the year, to say, you know what, I've been stressed out a lot. I want to reduce stress in my life. What can I do from the exercise perspective?
From the exercise perspective, you know, I already spoke about micro workouts and the intentionality behind that, being intentional, realizing that daily movement will actually impact your stress levels, will actually impact your sleep patterns as well. I ask people daily, are you getting 7 hours sleep a day? Most people that I deal with aren't. Do you go to bed at the same time every day? Most people don't. So being intentional about the things that you do on a day-to-day basis, which I call habit stacking. So you attach movement to a habit that you already have, to a routine. Your routine might be brushing your teeth. When you finish brushing your teeth, go and do 20 squats, go do 10 push-ups, go do 20 jumping jacks. Attach it to something that you already do. So that way you can actually have systems now established and put in place throughout your day. Just like I talked about, attaching walking to phone calls. 100%, it's changed.
Always making phone calls.
Absolutely. I'm 330 days consistent now of 10,000 steps and not falling below. But that was an intentional choice.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But it works.
Thank you very much for that. If I can switch over to you now, Cherise. Food. You know, we all intend to be good about food. And then the biscuits, the cakes, the parties, the ice creams. You know, somebody in the room was talking about pizzas. They can't resist them. So how can we, what's for you, this 2026, what's that big reset? What's that big change that people can make that's going to make that dramatic difference in their lives this year and help them overcome this, you know, on today and, you know, falling off the wagon tomorrow?
Thank you for having me today. So, of course, the big reset also involves setting goals, looking and reflecting on what you actually want to change and making this change be holistic. So we mentioned the lifestyle, the medical, the nutrition. There's also the environment, and there's spirituality into that as well. So when one reflects on what they need to change and writes it down, then you know you can put that action there.
So in terms of food, what are your recommendations?
Number one, I would recommend intermittent fasting. One doesn't have to be eating all the time.
Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent fasting, yes, is just a way of eating, and you're eating within a certain window. So that window could look like 10 to 6, which is an 8-hour window, or 11 to 7, also 8 hours, or 12 to 8. Now, the highlight of this window is ensuring that your last meal is your lightest meal for the day.
Okay. And how easy is that to achieve? Because it sounds, when you say it, it sounds easy. But how many people can do that?
It's so simple, so simple. So once you have a timetable, because you just don't want to go with the whim of eating anyhow or being drawn into other people's plans, you know that, okay, for this week and moving forward, I'm eating within the 8-hour window, I'm sticking with it. I have a plan. The plan is that I'm breaking my fast at a certain time with the foods that are on the timetable, which means you would have shopped on the weekend, because planning ahead also helps you with being successful. And you just follow through. You're hydrating. So you also have your personalized water bottle. And this really helps take you through the day. And then you realize, wow, so I'm not snacking and I'm eating more whole foods.
Talking about whole foods, we've got some very interesting items on the table. Do you want to tell us?
Sure.
What is the whole food and why should we be eating whole food?
So whole foods are natural foods, foods grown from Mother Nature without being processed. So of course we have things like your yam. This is cocoa yam, by the way. We have sweet potato, and sweet potato comes in different variations. So this is the orange flesh sweet potato. And I want to just show our viewers the orange flesh sweet potato. We also have the white flesh sweet potato, the purple sweet potato. And when you're preparing these, you would wash them very well and steam it. You're steaming it with the skin on, because the skin has the nutrients there. So your magnesium, your manganese, your zinc, your antioxidants, and of course this is so rich in fiber. So these are the foods that you pair with your soup. It could also be that you make your swallow as well, and you're eating these in the afternoon, not at night. And I think that's the mistake that people make many times.
It's so difficult to eat these things at, in the afternoon. You're in the office.
Yes.
So it's difficult, and you can't get this kind of healthy food in Mama Put or the buka around the corner. So I think that is the major challenge. So for our big reset, how can we make this food and all those vegetables that are at the bottom of the, over there, how can we make that real? How can we actually achieve that? Some people have to wake up at 4 a.m. to start going to the office. You start telling them, prepare this or prepare that. They come back home at 10, 11, 12. How do they do this?
Yes, so one has to delegate. So it may even be having a co-op in the office. So many times people are in the office and they're willing to make these fruits available. Otherwise, if you delegate to the people at home, they can have it cut up in the evening, and you know that it's packed for the next morning. So that way you're certain of what you're eating, certain of what you're getting, and remember, you are shopping ahead. So all these things are already there for you. And when you're being intentional, focusing on your health, it's something that is a priority, and you'll make time for it.
Thank you. I think, it's so important to talk about this, and we will be talking about it more and more, because lifestyle changes. We're talking about preventive health. We don't want to wait until we get sick. We want to make sure we stay healthy. And nutrition and exercise are our two best friends. So these are my two best friends here. And so it's very important that we focus, we see how we can make these changes in the coming year. To our viewers, thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Sharice and Majid, for both being with us. And I want to assure you that on Doctor's Air, you have trusted voices, medical experts that help you make healthier and better decisions.